Yeah, that's perfect.
Dobry
So,
wieczór, jak się masz?
jak tam pan? Moje po polsku nie dobrze jest. My Polish is not as good as it was when my babcia first taught me, um, when I was school age. But Douglas, I'm so grateful that she did teach me because it's opened doors and it's just something that's been a big part of my life. And I know you sent this in an email, but tell me how Poland has played a part in your life because I did see it on Instagram. You gave me a wonderful answer via email, but I wanted people to hear it. So
Okay. Well, the short version. Well, there isn't a short version, but I'll try and keep it short. I write plays with a partner. We've written 6 plays together so far.
yeah,
Over the last 30 odd years, and we've had a number of productions in Poland. We have a translator there who has translated, I think, about 5 of our plays now into Polish. And we were having a conversation one day about our 4th play that she was in the process of translating, and she was having some issues with it. And in the course of the conversation, my writing partner, Marcia, said to me, we're big news in Poland. I started to laugh. And she said, "What's so funny?" I said, "This reminds me of that time back in, I don't know, it was like the 70s or the 80s. It came out in the media that apparently in France, Jerry Lewis was considered to be a comic genius.
yeah,
And everybody in North America was like, really?" And shortly after that, these T-shirts started appearing that said, "I'm considered a genius in France." So I made us both T-shirts that said, "I'm big news in Poland." which
if you sold those, I would buy one, Douglas. If you sold those, I would buy one of those.
Well, and the one that you saw on Instagram, I just made for Marcia this summer for her birthday, and it says in Polish, "Jestem wielkim hitem w Międzyrzeczu," which is Polish for I'm big news in Międzyrzec.
Yeah. so
and
what?
I came up with that one because we have a national tour of one of our plays going around Poland right now, and it's playing all these little places like Międzyrzec. So
yeah. So why Poland, Douglas? Why of all places? Is it part of your heritage? Is it part of her heritage? Like
it was no. Well, it's actually part of her heritage, but that has nothing to do with it. It was a complete accident. Our translator, she lives in Warsaw. She spends 6 months of the year in London. And one of our plays was being produced in this theater company in Sonning, which is just outside of London. And she went to see the show, and she translates all kinds of plays. Like she's one of the most popular translators in Poland. You see her name all over Warsaw whenever you see ads for plays, English plays that are being done in Polish. And she contacted our publisher and said, "I'd like to translate this in Polish. Can I get permission from the authors?" And it just kind of grew from there.
Wow.
So we've now had, I think, 5 plays produced, 5 productions in Poland over the last little while in three different theaters, I think. 4 counting the national tour that's going on right now. So
yeah, there's an insane appreciation in Poland for like plays, theater, movies, shows. Like Poland is like it's like a US equivalent of appreciation. It's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. It's like nothing we have here. The interest in theater. I mean, some of these tours go on for years. And I think, how could a country this size support it? But it can, because everybody goes to the theater,
Right. There's something beautiful about that. Doug, I had a few questions before we jumped into from. So, Doug, where are you from? Tell me about your early life. What kind of kid were you? Things like this, things along those lines.
I was born and raised in Richmond Hill, which is just outside of Toronto.
Okay.
It was a very small town when I was a kid, and Toronto was a million miles away.
Right.
Richmond Hill is now over 250,000 people, and it's basically part of the suburbs. But when I was a kid, we were just a little suburb, like out in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by farmland. The 4th of 6 boys, had a pretty typical, suburban upbringing. Played hockey as a kid. I was nuts for hockey. I wanted to make a career out of it.
Yeah.
I basically had 3 career objectives. I wanted to be a vertebrate paleontologist, a movie star, and the number 1 goalie for the Chicago Blackhawks.
Well, you've got your 1 for 3 so far, which isn't too bad. So that's pretty good. That's pretty good for life goals. So I mean, you've done so much theater work. You've done so much, like you've poured yourself into acting. I mean, is there any part of your journey, any part of everything you've accumulated that you find it stands out most, whether it's theater work or an acting coach or somebody along those lines? Is it, or do all those experiences, Doug, make up who you are? Is there one that stands out, or is it just a collective unit?
It's It's really hard to delineate that. I
Yeah,
mean, it's true. My focus has always been primarily on theater right from the get-go.
yeah,
My writing partner and I have dabbled with screenwriting and writing for TV. None of that stuff has been produced. It's just been us sort of, stretching our muscles. But the vast majority of our focus has been on writing for theater. And the vast majority of my focus, for the most part, was theater, just because that was the work that I was getting when I started out. That was the world that I was accustomed to. There was a period in the 80s where, for whatever reason, suddenly I started landing all kinds of commercials, which was a very strange experience
right,
because it
right.
was it was kind of like a little taste of what celebrity is like, but only the bad side. It was kind of like all the unfortunate aspects of celebrity without any of the good stuff, you know?
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's
Um,
that's well said. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but that little blip on the screen aside, the odd bit of small parts in movies and episodics and stuff like that, but really I didn't do very much TV or film work at all until COVID hit, and then there was no live theater, and so suddenly things changed. And
Yeah,
uh,
yeah. I thought about you. I was watching this interview. Somebody had approached Denzel Washington on the red carpet of Gladiator 2, the premiere, and it was a young man who wanted to be an actor, and he was like, Denzel, like, what do I do? He goes, find a theater, no matter how big, and just basically live there, learn there. It doesn't matter if it's big or small. And I have to say, I'm not an actor, and I've said this maybe in another interview, but like theater terrorizes me for I'm not an actor. I could never be in front of people like that, and like you're like a a rope walker. It's like I couldn't do that. It's very difficult. But I think his point was well taken. That theater is the foundation of acting, or it's certainly a big part of it.
it's funny you should mention that quote because I just saw that online a few days ago, the Denzel
Wow,
Washington thing. Yeah.
wow, yeah,
Yeah, but
yeah,
there's a lot to that. I mean, like theater gives you a really good grounding,
hundred
uh,
percent.
you know.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't be the same person you are today without theater. I mean, it changes the scope of everything, right, Doug?
Well, you asked if there was anything significant in my career that I could point to, and I would have to say getting hired at the Shaw Festival was probably the biggest thing that happened in my career. In fact, I was on the verge of quitting my career when I finally got offered a position there. I had auditioned for the company probably about 9 or 10 times over a space of like 15 years. And they never hired me, but they kept bringing me back every year. And finally, one year, Christopher Newton, who was the artistic director at the time, he would always say after I did my pieces, he would say, do you have any questions? And I usually didn't. And I'd say no. And he said, all right, thank you very much. And I'd leave. But one year, I was mulling over, like, why does he keep seeing me? He's never hired me. So one year he said, you have any questions? I said, yeah, I got a question, Chris. What am I doing here? And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, Jesus, you've seen me, I don't know, 9 or 10 times over the last 15 years. You've never hired me, but you keep bringing me back. Why? And he said, that's a very good question. And I've got a very good answer for you. And he launched into this explanation that every year he would go across the country and do auditions and see, 600 actors. And in any given year, he might have 6 to 12 positions to offer people. And he said that there were a lot of actors whose work he really liked, that he'd never been in a position to hire because he didn't have anything to offer them in any given year. And he said, and I like to keep tabs on those people. And that's why you're here. And I said, thank you for telling me that. Now, had he not told me that, the following year, I probably wouldn't have asked for another audition. I would have sent a resume and said, keep me in mind. But a year went by and I thought, no, no, no. He says he wants to keep seeing me. I'm going to take him at his word. So I asked for one more audition. Now, that happened to be like the worst year of my career. I wasn't getting any work at all. And on my birthday, I walked into my agent's office and I said, that's it. I'm getting out. And she says, no, 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 you can't quit. And I said, well, come on, who are we kidding? I might as well call myself a submarine commander for all the practical application it has to do with my daily life. And she said, well, give us some time. We'll turn things around. I said, okay, 6 months. You got 6 months. Mark it on the calendar. If by February 16th, if nothing's happened, I'm out of here. Well, this was before the annual auditions at Shaw, but I'd already asked for one and I got one final audition. So I went in and I thought, I wonder if I should tell him. And I thought, nah, don't do that. That's going to sound like give me a job or I'm, going to shoot myself. So I thought, no, I won't say anything. And I went in, did my audition. And this year he didn't say, do you have any questions? He said to me, so how's your year been? I said, oh God, don't get me started. This has been a year from hell. He said, yes, I'm hearing a lot of that. So we had this discussion about, how difficult an actor's life is and blah, blah, blah. At the end of which I said, well, Chris, I wasn't going to tell you this, but it's kind of germane to the conversation. This is probably the last time you're going to see me. And he said, I'm very disturbed to hear that. And I thought, then give me a fucking job. Didn't say that, of course. Anyway, I left and I just had this vague feeling that maybe that was the right thing to do. Well, this was in like November. And back in those days, they used to put their offers out usually sort of like late January, somewhere around there, early February. So around the end of January, which of course is the slowest time of the year, I called up my agents because February 16th was looming very large on the calendar.
Yeah.
And I said, is there anything going on? And they said, no, there's nothing on the horizon. I said, could you do me a favor? Just call down to Shaw and see if I'm being considered. And she said, okay. Call me back a couple of hours later and said, no, nobody's heard your name. And I thought, well, I guess that's it. The 8th of February, 8 days before the deadline, I'm down in my basement. I had just made a batch of homemade beer. I'm cleaning out the equipment. I'm watching all this sludge going down the sink. And I'm saying to myself, well, that's it. That's the perfect metaphor for my career right there. I might as well face it. I will never work again. And literally, when the period at the end of that sentence formed in my head, the phone rang. Went upstairs, picked it up. It was the Shaw Festival calling to offer me the season.
Wow.
And I looked at the phone, I hung it up, and I just went, hey, you son of a bitch. And I was there for 13 years.
Wow. Doug,
changed my life.
It's so many people come to that crossroads and they just leave. Like you were legitimately like days away from going down that same path. So I'm very happy you stuck with it.
You and me both.
Yeah. So let's get into this. Doug, everyone is talking about. I reached out to you because I see the screeners, and it's tough for me to not tell people because after I saw episode 10, I was like, this is one of the most amazing series episodes I've seen in a series ever. Like I was so beside myself, and I was thinking about a few people, but you were one. I was like, this character is unbelievable. Like I've never seen somebody maximize screen time the way you did in that very captivating way, Doug.
Well, in fairness, I mean, all the kudos have to go to John. And I was so glad that I got to meet him the day that we shot that stuff, because I just went up to him and I said, you're my freaking hero. Because I actually auditioned for the series before the first season for a couple of different roles. I was called back a few times to read for 2 different roles. And ultimately, they went in different directions with both of those roles. And I won't specify them, but I will just say that both of them are absolutely perfectly cast. So I have no problem with that. But that's like years ago, and thing happened, and I forgot all about it. And then this spring, out of the blue, my agent gets a call, or she calls me one day, and she says, I've got an availability check here for you from like the middle of March till the middle of April. You got anything going on? And I'm like, no, not really. So she said, okay. Well, about 3 weeks went by, didn't hear anything. And I thought, well, whatever it was, they must have cast it by now. And I got offered a day job, like a day's work on this thing. And so I called my agent just to see if, it would be okay, because we were still within this 4-week period. And she said, no, you're still being considered for this thing. I didn't know it was from. I had no idea what it was at this point. They had just asked for my demo reel, and that was it. And so very shortly after that conversation, she called me back and she said, they actually want to audition you. So we're going to do a Zoom audition on Saturday. So it was Jack doing the auditions, Jack Bender. I believe, anyway, I never got to see him because I was, it was a Zoom audition. Just you spend the time looking at yourself. And we ran, it's a very short scene, and we ran through it twice. And that was it. Now, I did find out before the audition that it was for From, and that's when I got nervous, because I thought, oh my God, I can't mess this up. Because when I read for it the first time, I can't tell you, I read the scene and I said to myself, this stuff is brilliant. I don't know who wrote this stuff, but my God, I would kill to do this. And then when I got the second character, it was like more of the same. And I just thought, oh my God, this is so amazing. And then nothing, So then when I heard I'm actually auditioning for the series, suddenly the tension just went. So I did the audition, and then my agent called me a couple hours later and said, you're on hold, which means you're being considered, but they're probably considering a couple of other guys. And almost every time in my career when I've been told that, it's been the kiss of death. In fact, it
Yeah.
just happened to be this week. I was on hold for something, didn't get it. And she called me. It was late Saturday night. It was like 10:30 at night. She called me and she said, "You've been booked. You're on a flight to Halifax first thing Monday morning." And I was like, pinch me. It happened so quickly and just came out of nowhere. And it was like a dream come true. And of course, the scene, when I read the scene, I just went, this is my introduction. Oh my God, this is a gift from heaven, you know? And so that's all John. That's, 90% of my work was done for me before I got there.
Doug, did they give you any context behind? Because this character, I mean, we'll get to this in a moment, but like I think is so huge. I think he's the guy as far as evil goes in this place. Did they give you context behind who this is, how they want you to play it?
No,
anything of those? No, nothing.
No, well, I mean, there was the direction that John gave me in the audition, but that was basically it. And John, that Jack gave me in the audition, and John and I talked about. I just, basically foamed at the mouth about how much I loved his writing. That's basically all we talked about before we shot the scene. But no, and in fact, I didn't have the whole script for the series. I had never seen the series before because I didn't have any streaming services at the time. So when I found out I got the job, I quickly got a subscription to Paramount Plus and watched. I only had time to watch, I think, 4 episodes. I watched the top and tail of seasons 1 and 2 just to get some sense of what was going on. So that's all I had seen when I went in to do it. And given the nature of the scene, it wasn't really necessary to have any more context, I think, than I had, because it's so self-explanatory when you read the scene, what's going on. And that was a very similar response that I had when I first read the scenes that I was sent 3 years ago. It was like, because when you get an audition, you don't get the whole script. You just get the sides of the scenes you're reading for.
Sure.
So you have to infer a great deal. But even with that, even not having any context at all, I got a very clear, intuitive sense of what this series was all about and the general feel of it. I mean, that was very clear from John's writing. And this was just another case in point. So when we shot it, I basically didn't know any more about this character than the people who just saw it since it was released yesterday.
Right. What is Jack? I'm sure he said a lot of things, but at the audition, what are some of the things that he tells you that you can, or maybe hopefully can say, as far as direction goes?
It was just kind of tweaking stuff, like we only did 2 takes of the scene. And I think the first time I went through, because you have no context, you just sort of have to make decisions, and hope to God that they're not way out of line with what they're looking for. And he just wanted me to tone down the humor the second time I did it, basically. There wasn't much difference between the 2 takes. And it's like, yeah, I can do that. I think he said to me, a little less snidely whiplash was the quote. I said, okay, got it. Thank you. No problem.
Yeah. But yeah, this character's pure evil, Doug. I mean, you had to have a blast as an actor. Like, he is pure evil. Like I get it. It wasn't a long scene, but it sure as hell is a profound scene. And and just talk about being this man, being this evil. Like, we don't know anything about it. You kind of are in the same boat. What did you really want to instill or bring to this guy to really kind of send home the message that you gave the viewers on, was it yesterday? I think, yeah.
Well, what people always say about evil characters is you can't think of, when you're playing one, you can't think of them as evil because, most people who might be perceived as evil don't see themselves that way.
That's right.
They're always justified in what they're doing. And I think that's, I have to see the scene from my character's point of view, which means I have to find a sense of cathexis with him. I have to sympathize with his point of view. And so I think and within that, you also want to give the thing some depth, some dimension. So I thought, whatever got this being to where he is, he's obviously been really damaged along the way. And so that was kind of the thing that I was sitting with, that this guy is not necessarily particularly happy about where he is. He's making the most of it, but there's there are some deep wounds within this being.
Yeah,
You know,
that's a great answer. And it's because you look at the way he, like, I'm surprised he didn't go after like Tabitha or other people. He goes after Jim, which was stunning. Like, I was like, oh my god, I can't believe this is happening. I think people's jaws dropped on the floor when they saw
not
you.
careful. Don't go too
But
far.
okay, but their jaws had to drop on the floor when they saw what happened. I just, oh my goodness, what a surprise that is, Doug.
Well, my jaw dropped on the floor when I read the scene. It was like, oh
Yeah,
my God, you know.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
I had Hannah on the podcast. Was it 2 days ago?
oh,
And
she's a
she's,
sweetheart.
oh my god, you guys were so good on, like, she's genuinely terrified. She's telling her dad, "Get out, get out, get out." And you're coming after her, like you've got that like badass Terminator vibe to you, but but so much more frightening. Oh my god.
Mm.
And what From does is so I don't know if you can see your screen, but they drop like little clues, like this card was in,
Oh, yes.
um yeah,
Episode 2. Yes, I saw
so
it.
they're smart the way they get people talking. But also, Doug, you're saying this is the first time in this role, but I thought there was on a CB radio, Jim having a conversation with who I thought was this character. Is that was not you?
Well, I think that was that character, but that was not my voice.
That's what I'm
And
saying. Yeah.
and as it happens, that was one of the 4 episodes that I saw before we shot the
Ah,
scene. And I thanked God when I got the script that it was like, I thanked God that I watched that one, because I thought, and I watched it a few times to try and match my delivery to that line at the end of season 1.
yeah.
Yeah, it was just the luck of the draw that I happened to see that episode. So
And this character is like, I guess, what's the official name? The man in the yellow suit. That's the official.
that's how he's known. Yeah,
Yeah, and it's like, the fact that he can walk during the day and be seen during the day adds a completely different dynamic than the viewer seen in the first 3 seasons. Like,
exactly.
it is frightening as hell. Like, oh my god, like I don't know how they get out of this. But let me ask you, Doug. So there's no way they leave it here. Like, you have now opened the door to series regular status or something in that ballpark, right? Like, I mean,
Well,
that's
I
they
mean,
can't.
that
There's
was
no way they can leave this here. There's no way.
I mean, I have no specifics about that at all. All I can tell
Correct.
you is that when I auditioned, as I said, initially they were just going to cast from people's audition reels, but then I guess Jack decided he needed to see the people that he was interested in, and they apologized for having me audition for such a short role, which personally I had no problem with at all. But what they said was, if there is a season 4, this is going to be a very significant character in this season. So that's why we're going to all this trouble. We need to know that you're going to be able to handle that.
Yeah.
So,
How good does it feel to be a part of such a show that, like, these fans are awesome. Like, they're
like I
great.
said, it's like a dream come true.
Yeah.
I was so disappointed when I didn't get anything in the series the first time around, and I thought that's it, game over kind of thing. So when this opportunity came along, I couldn't believe my luck, and when I landed it, it was like winning the lottery. It just,
Very
yeah,
similar to the other situation you were talking about when you were making beer and you were giving it to February 16th. This
exactly.
is this is very close to that,
Yeah.
and look at the part that you got, right? I don't know who the other parts are, and if you're not comfortable telling me, then I don't want to hear them. But whatever you didn't get, whatever roles those were, now you come back as a complete badass, who frightens everybody that watches the show. Like, it's
The only reason I'm reluctant to mention who the other characters were that I auditioned for is, like, I don't want, now I'm going to be working with these guys,
I know,
and
I
I don't,
got you. Oh,
you
100%.
know,
Yeah, yeah, yes. Oh,
so
I totally respect that. Oh, yes. Yeah.
and
Whatever
like
you're
I said,
comfortable with. Yeah.
I can't take anything away from either of them, because they're both absolutely, like, if I had once I saw the series, I went, of course they went with those guys. Totally, they're perfect, so
Yeah, yeah. Are,
end
are
of
you going to
story.
dive back in to catch up to date, or do you think you're good with where you are? Are you going to go
Oh,
back in and?
I've seen all of it now. I mean,
Oh,
once
okay, okay.
once we shot this, I immediately watched the entire series all the way through, and I've been keeping up with season 3 right up until yesterday.
There's
So
that. Was that not the most special episode of a show? I mean, there's so much going on. That last 10 minutes, Doug. I've never seen anything like it. I There's so many emotions. Like, it's beyond explanation what happens in those last 10 minutes. It's like there's things that will keep you awake at night. And I saw this thing 2 weeks ago.
Mhm.
I really don't want to. I might have spoiled something accidentally early on, but that is definitely not my intention. I definitely don't want to ruin anything for anybody. My intention is the opposite. I want people to get happy and look forward to this great show. But boy, was it hard to keep my mouth shut because I wanted to say, you have not seen the man in the yellow suit. He's a badass. He's a threat. He's unbelievable. But whatever you wanted to say, Doug. It's
I was just going to say there one little tidbit here. Jack told me on the day that I didn't know this, of course, that he does a lot of the drawings that we see, like in the opening credits. And
like the one that's on your board, like on the board right now, like he does those.
Yes, he did that one, and he showed it to me on his phone, and I looked at it and I said, "Well, you got the ears right, that's for sure."
he never tells you like a little tidbit about your character, like nothing. Like,
well, there wasn't really time, to be honest. I mean, I was because this character had never been seen before. I was in makeup forever because everything they did, they would have to contact Jack, who was busy directing at the time, and get approval for everything. So it took forever just to get ready, and I was in costume too, because they basically built the costume in like a day, it was crazy how fast it all had to happen. And so, I mean, I kind of felt like I was operating at 78 speed until suddenly, boom, there we are on set. So there really wasn't any time to go into any detail about any of this stuff.
Well, your theater background must have helped because you are so believable in your role. Like, oh my God, it was just that level of fear to instill that in an audience. That takes a pretty special talent, Doug. That's pretty special.
Well, that's very kind of you to say, but I have to tell you, the whole horror genre is very new to me. In fact, the only other horror thing I've done was early last year. I did a little indie short here in Toronto, directed by a local guy, and I played a vampire in that.
Yeah,
and that was the first time I'd ever done anything like that since playing Dracula when I was 21.
Yeah. Well, this guy's not far off from that. Talk about playing this level of evil, right? Like, it's got to be fun. I get it. The genre is new to you, but like this, you look so natural. You look so at home. Like, and I know you said it's not a long scene, and it's not, but it's sure as hell, as I said, a profound scene. And it's. I've watched this episode 4 or 5, I think even 6 or 7 times. I've been watching it. It's pretty amazing the way you look. You are settled into this role.
Well, and again, I have to tip my hat to John Griffin because the writing is, I mean, the whole series, the writing is just so excellent. But in this particular scene, he manages to do with a tremendous amount of economy. What he manages to do is create this quite three-dimensional character in no time at all. And that takes a serious talent to be able to do that. So you read the scene and you go, oh, I know who this guy is, That was kind of my response when I first got it for the audition. I went, oh, this is a treat. This is like, some guy stepping up to bat and getting this really fat fastball coming like right belt high, like he just knows he's going to knock it out of the park. It was one of those,
Yeah. How chilling was the scream by Hannah, who plays Julie?
Oh my God. I told her afterwards, I said, that was the most phenomenal scream I've ever heard in my life. Like, so committed and so deep and just like, amazing.
Yeah. To watch, and I told her this, to watch a daughter see that happen to her father in front of her face. But I'll leave it there. Boy, it's emotional too. But like, I'm just like, so cosmetically, talk about what they did to you, Doug. I can't tell if there was contacts or not.
No. People are going on about the eyes. I think that was just a trick of the light because they didn't.
I think so too. Yeah.
Just
how about skin? How about skin or anything else? Anything? Did they?
Oh yeah, they really went crazy on my face, on my hair, my hands. Spent a lot of time on my hands. They also, and this was the only thing that disappointed me when I saw the final cut was you don't really see my teeth very much, and they spent forever on my teeth. I had like these really disgustingly rotted teeth, and you don't really see
top. Up top, you could kind of see it. Like if you look at up top where you are now, you can kind of see the teeth there. I don't know if you can see it up top on the screen. I don't know if you're able to see it, but
It's not with good enough resolution to be able to tell.
yeah. You'll see, like, when this interview drops, you'll see it. Yeah, it's pretty. That's pretty amazing. How long are we talking for the whole thing? To get you ready?
I was probably in the makeup and hair trailer for off and on for about 2 or 3 hours. Now,
Wow.
down the road, that won't be the case because they now, it's all set. So they'll know what they're doing next time right from the get-go. So it won't take that long. But it's a pretty involved process. The funny part was building the suit. I mean, it's this gorgeous Irish linen, and when I saw the material, it was still pristine, when they were fitting it on me. And I went,
Yeah.
oh my God, I want one of these for myself, And then of course they take this beautiful suit and they basically custom build it for me. And then they go and take it out and throw it on the road and drive a truck over it for a while. My God, what a waste. But
there's been many stories of a king in yellow in, like, True Detective season 1. So I don't know if they drew inspiration from that, John and Jack, but like this idea of the man in yellow, the king in yellow. It was a book late 1800s, but it's pretty terrifying what they've set up. Like, what's the next step for you? Do you find, like, have they already reached out to you? Do you have to wait word?
Oh no, it's too early days for that.
Okay.
I can't really say at this point when I will be hearing from them, if I hear from them. If I'm guessing, it probably won't be anything until the new year, but I honestly don't know. In terms of like how I will approach it, now that I know that it's going to be a more involved thing, the first thing I want to do is get John Griffin's email address and say, John, please tell me everything you can about this guy, because I'm sure he's got reams and reams of material, all of which would be, great grist for the mill. So,
I cannot wait to see what you do with that information. Like, if what I saw 2 weeks ago and then repeatedly watched 6-7 times is what your performance was based on, like, not a ton of knowledge, I can't even imagine what it's going to look like once you have a full resource to, a Rolodex in your head about what this guy is really like. Good God, Doug, is that going to be fun to watch?
There is one aspect of his character that I think was probably suggested to me by the writing. That is something I hope to hang on to, and that is that this is a guy with a well-developed sense of humor.
Yes. Well, they told you to calm it down. It's almost like that, like the Shining Jack Nicholson type of sense of humor, where it's like it's funny, but it's also quite scary too.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's good though. Like, but it's the type of humor like the Joker had too. I feel like
that's a good analogy. Yeah.
It's funny, but it's not funny if you're on the other end of things.
And I don't know what John would say about that. He might say, "No, you're totally off base. I didn't intend that at all." But but that was my intuitive sense just reading it. I thought there's a comfort level to this guy that came across to me in the writing, and as just a subtle hint of humor to him, that I think would be interesting to play around with.
But that type of humor makes these type of characters, and this is a very unique character, that much more frightening. Like,
exactly.
That doesn't make them like, oh, they've got a good sense of humor. This is like, oh my God, like this is next level diabolical behavior. So you mentioned your better half was named, not your better half, your other half, Marcia. Am I saying her name right?
Marcia.
So
Cash is her name.
Did she watch episode 10 with you?
She hasn't seen it yet. No. We were together earlier today.
I am curious to see what her reaction would be when she sees everything unfold. She's going to be so proud.
She's seen, the pictures and stuff, and she has a sort of general idea of what she's in for already. She knows a lot about the series and the nature of it and stuff. So I think she's pretty well prepared without having any specifics. I think she has a pretty good idea of what she's in for. But I'll be interested to hear what she has to say too. I mean,
do they let you take your jacket home, or do you have to leave it there?
Oh no, it's all that's back there.
I have a feeling next Halloween we've got a new popular outfit. I have a feeling like there's going to be a lot of trick-or-treaters showing up at my door dressed in yellow, and I'm going to run like hell.
I might be tempted to show up at a party or two in that outfit, and people are going to be, "Hey, you look just like that guy," you know.
That's the other thing too. Like, he's a day walker, but like the other thing with the monsters from is they come out at night. But the other thing is they never run; they just walk. I wonder if the man in the yellow suit can run too. Like, I don't know if that's part of it, because if that's the case, it's oh geez,
Hey, I wonder if he can ride a motorbike. I mean, yeah, it could get really serious.
Doug, thank you for all this time. I have a few more questions. How wonderful is this cast? Mostly Canadian based. Boy, have they put together one hell of an ensemble and created something that's really popular that hasn't even hit its peak yet. Like, we haven't even entered the prime of the show yet.
Well, it's funny because of the nature of the scene. I didn't really get to meet anybody other than Ian and Hannah in the cast.
Yeah.
Because that's all we were doing that day. Or I think there was something before me, but of course I was in makeup for 3 hours, so I don't know what was going on before that. But just from watching the series, there's just so many people in this whose work I just love. I know Deb Grover. I know I've met Elizabeth, I think, because Cliff Saunders and I spent a season together at Stratford.
Okay.
So we did a couple of shows together, and we also did a workshop together. So I have a feeling he probably introduced me to Elizabeth at a party or something at some point, but that was like 15 years ago. So who knows,
Yeah. So I have to ask you this question. It does potentially approach spoilers. So if somebody haven't seen it, they could pause it here and watch it when they watch it. I have to ask you because it's such an important question. How emotional was Ian in that last day? How, because this is a beloved character who's been here since the start. Did you see any emotion? Did you see him or Hannah, or like, what was that like? Because these are characters that have been with us since day one, and you put a dent in that a little bit.
It's well, it was also the last shooting day of the season.
Gotcha.
So I think there was a kind of a minor key feel about the whole atmosphere that day, because the whole thing was winding down. This was kind of goodbye,
But it's really goodbye for Ian. It's like really goodbye. But like what was there? I mean, and his character,
I can't comment on that.
Okay. All right. Okay.
And I don't think it's necessarily true either. So,
Oh, all right. So there's a lot, but
I mean, come on, look at where we are, for God's sake. Look at the world he's occupying. I mean,
this is the worst place. This is the worst place to be. It is just completely frightening. So what are some other projects for you around the corner? Do you have anything else you wanted to throw out there outside of From?
Well, in terms of acting and stuff, it's been very quiet. But my writing partner and I, in fact, today we just finished the first draft of our newest play, which has been a fun exercise. It's a little three-hander about identity theft. So, lots of laughs in that one. But I'll tell you, it's interesting. Our sixth play, our most recent play, it's called Deadline, actually has a kind of a broad thematic similarity to the series From. Because it's about these two playwrights who find themselves trapped in the world of the mystery that they're writing. These two people who suddenly find themselves in this world where they have no idea how they got there, and people are being killed, and they're desperately trying to find their way back home. Sound familiar?
Yeah. I like it. But you know what else I like too, Doug, is you are so passionate about writing and plays. Like, I could see it all over your face. Like, you are so like happy and proud, and like this stuff means a lot to you. Like, and it's to see that makes me happy. It resonates.
Well, I have to say that, I probably have two people to thank when it comes to this state of mine. One of them being Chris Newton at the Shaw Festival for, saving my life. And also Marcia, because she actually approached me and asked me if I would be interested in writing with her. She and her husband were living out in Edmonton for many years. He was running a theater company there. And she was an actress initially. We were both actors when we started writing together. She's now a full-time theater director when she's working, and when she's not writing, that is. So that's her second career. But she was out there working on this farce, and it was apparently not a great piece of writing, whatever it was. So the cast was all sitting around in the bar one night complaining about what a piece of shit this play was that they were working on. And somebody piped up and said, well, you know, we've got about 50 years of experience in farce sitting around this table. We could write a better play than this. And somebody else said, yeah, we could. So they ordered another pitcher of beer and started kicking ideas around, at which point Marcia piped up. And at the time, she probably was in her late 20s, early 30s. And she said, I just want to say something. Every time I'm in one of these things, I end up having to run around in my underwear. If I'm going to write one of them, the men are going to have to run around in their underwear. And all the women at the table are like, yeah. So she and the stage manager from the show went off and actually started writing this play. And they got about 30 pages into their first draft when she and her husband moved back to Toronto. So she and the stage manager parted company with an understanding that if either one of them wanted to continue on their own, they were free to do that. Stage manager put it down, never looked at it again. Mars started working on it on her own. And one night I was out having coffee with her and she said, I've got this play I've been trying to work on my own and I'm not getting anywhere. I think I need a partner. Would you be interested? And she and I had worked together in a couple of shows as actors where I had written some skits for her for an after show performance one night. And I was always writing parodies of the songs and the musicals and stuff. So I guess that's where she got the idea that I might be interested in writing. And I said, well, yeah, let me see what you got. And I read through the first 30 pages and I said, yeah, I think there's something here. I think we can do this. So I think it was the beginning of 1991. We sat down and we started writing this thing around my schedule selling shoes in the Eaton Center. And 6 months later, we had a first draft. And then we went off that summer and did theater and got together in the fall and wrote the second draft. And then the beginning of the next year, we wrote the third draft. And that got produced. And then it got published by Samuel French. And we sort of went, well, that went well. Let's do that again. So, and that was 33 years ago. So, and
that's awesome.
Almost 34.
Wow. My last question for you is this, so your character and you are all over Facebook, people dissecting your character, loving your character. That's got to be a pretty damn good feeling, Doug, to know that your work has, this is just the tip of the iceberg too. We haven't even gotten to what your full potential is going to be here once you know the whole story and so forth. But that's a great feeling though. You have fans that have seen 4 minutes of your work and are all in on the man in the yellow suit. That's pretty.
I think it's more like a minute and a half. I have to reiterate though that so much of the work that went into this was done before me, before I even showed up. Right. I mean, I really see this role as a huge cosmic gift.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And
I would agree. Yeah,
go ahead.
It's you're right. I think this is the guy that people have been trying to put together for 3 seasons. Why is From the way it is? Well, I got to tell you, I can't prove it, but I'm pretty sure that this guy knows the answers to a lot.
Well, he's certainly, I mean, it seems pretty clear that he's going to be a factor in that. Absolutely. And I'm just as excited as you. I mean, like I said, I really would love to sit down with John and say, what do you have planned with this guy? Because I know he's worked a lot of this stuff out already, and it would just be really interesting to know, what his intentions are and what influences he was drawing from and creating him and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's always good to know,
Yeah, well, I got to say, I'm a fan, Doug, and I really hope you come back on down the road. It was so much fun conversing with you. You're such a good human being and wonderful actor, and I really appreciate every minute you gave me today.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. It's just been a joy. So thanks for inviting me.